want to say my thanks right off the bat for not just Mr. Jackson, our song leader today, but our other song leaders. We're really well blessed as a congregation to have 3 song leaders because without a song service, and we think about it, it really wouldn't be the same if we started a service without song. So I'd like you today to turn to hymn number 59. Hymn number 59. And many of these are psalms that are set to music. We see hymn number 59. It says, "Come before his presence" is the title of it. And it starts out, "Come before his presence with singing. Make a joyful noise unto the Lord. Come and serve the Lord filled with gladness, singing praises with one accord." Now, that's the song version, of course, and it says under Psalm 100. It's a very short psalm. Actually, but that's not really the psalm I want you to turn to today. I want you to turn to Psalm 95. But you know, it was years ago, I was attending church in San Diego, California, and the only piano player, we didn't have CDs then for to automate some of the music portion of it, and the only piano player was an elderly woman who was severely inflicted with arthritis. And she wasn't always well enough to play, and because her hands were somewhat gnarled, it was difficult. We just didn't have the congregational hymns in on CD. And eventually another lady learned to play the piano, but she could only use one hand because she could only read limited use. So we had a congregational singing with only using her right hand. But everybody had a good heart. They did come with joy and gladness. When I was a youngster, I did take piano lessons, much to many people's surprise, perhaps. My mother faithfully took my brother and myself to piano lessons once each week. Each of us had a half-an-hour lesson at Mrs. Verlow's house. She was a kindly older Seventh-day Adventist lady. And after my piano lesson, I played outside, and I waited for another half an hour while my brother finished his lesson. And during that half an hour, I climbed all over the rock retaining wall. I'm sure I memorized every rock on that wall. Week after week, it seemed like every minute was an hour when you're waiting for someone else. It only was later when I became a parent that I realized actually my mother dropped 3 of us boys off for piano lessons. That was an hour and a half of wonderful relief that she had. And every time she picked us up, she had a car full of groceries. She could go grocery shopping in that period of time. It worked out wonderfully for her. It only been I became a parent myself that I realized the value of going grocery shopping without some of the tag-along problems. And then, of course, we had to practice the piano at home. Now, we had an older upright piano in our farmhouse, and over again we practiced those lessons day after day. In fact, it was impossible not to listen when my brothers were practicing their piano lessons as well. Now, my next younger brother, the third son in the family, heard us practicing the piano. Well, he eventually became the third one to take lessons. So he started playing the piano on his own. And he was a gifted musician. So playing piano came easy for him. It wasn't long before my parents then decided to send him along for the piano lessons. And then that meant I had to spend 2 half-hour periods waiting for brothers. It went from a half hour to an hour waiting. And so the next 3 years, my parents invested in us, I don't suppose were entirely wasted. My younger brother went on to become an accomplished musician. He plays most instruments that he can pick up, although his favorite is a keyboard. His nickname is 88 Fingers for his ability to play the piano. He had his own band, has written over 200 songs, and recorded his own albums. Well, I'm not so gifted. I can read music to a degree. I kind of know when music goes up and when it goes down, and when some notes are of longer duration than others. But I don't have that same natural gift that some people have. Now, I did have my elementary school music teacher, Mrs. Edquist, and I remember her well, but she never selected me to sing a solo part. I was never sought out to participate in a choir or chorus. And then later as an adult, well, actually when I was turned 40, I had a comprehensive aptitude test to see what I wanted to do when I grew up. And those aptitudes were things that people were born with. And included in the aptitude test were 3 musical assessments: pitch discrimination, rhythm memory, and tonal memory, the ability to recognize melodies. Well, in order to be a concert-level musician, you really need to have all 3 aptitudes in a high degree. Unfortunately for me, I scored low in rhythm memory. This makes complex music more difficult for me. Yet here we are in God's church singing hymns each week. And with my limitations, I'm sure there are others who share my personal lack of confidence regarding music. And I can't help but wonder, what could I possibly contribute to the song service during church? So let's turn to Psalm 95 and start in verse 1. In Psalm 95 and verse 1, "O come, let us sing to the Lord. Let us make a joyful noise to the rock of our salvation." And verse 2, "Let us come before his presence with thanksgiving and make a joyful noise unto him with psalms." Well, first of all, we notice that the word come in verse 1, according to Strong's, it's a different word in the word come in verse 2. So verse 1 is translated come as in English, and it's verse 2, but there are different roots. According to Strong's, in verse 1, the number 3212, the word come, is from the Hebrew word that includes meaning to grow, to prosper, to pursue, or to cause to run. Whereas in verse 2, the Strong's word number is 6923, and from the Hebrew word that means to project oneself, to hasten, to meet, as in running for help or meeting for help, or to come. In other words, we are to listen, we are to eagerly hasten toward our opportunities to come and worship before God. To hasten. That comes hard for some people because we're to sing. How often have we heard someone say that they just can't sing? I mean, it's hard to be eager for the song service if you feel as though you just can't do well. Let's continue on then and go back to Psalm 95 and verse 1. "O come, let us sing to thee, Lord. Let us make a joyful noise." I'd like to point out that the 7 times the term joyful noise appears in the Bible. It does not say operatic quality renditions with superior performance. It simply says joyful noise in English. Actually, the word noise isn't present in its original Hebrew in Psalm 95, 1 and 2. It's implied by the context. And as you know, translation from one language to another can be a challenging endeavor. We all know the common definition of noise, but Merriam-Webster's 10th edition dictionary has one definition of noise as a sound, one that lacks agreeable music quality or is noticeably unpleasant. And that can certainly be the definition for some of the sound that may come out of my mouth from time to time. But if we turn then to Psalm 98, verse 4, 98, verse 4, the actual Hebrew word for noise is used in this same context. In Psalm 98:4, "Make a joyful noise unto the Lord. All the earth, make a loud noise and rejoice and sing praise." Well, here, the Strong's number 6476 for the word noise, the definition is this: to break out in joyful sound, to break forth into joy, to make a joyful noise. So, and then if we flip to Psalm 81, verse 1, we read in Psalm 81:1, "Sing aloud unto God our strength, make a joyful noise unto the God of Jacob." So here we're instructed to sing aloud. It doesn't say to only sing if you have an opera singer's voice. It doesn't say to lip sync with the words, to fake like you're singing. Go ahead, make a joyful noise. It's not embarrassing to God, and it shouldn't be embarrassing to us. We have the upcoming holy days, and of course we have a holy day every week, the Sabbath, and the upcoming fall holy days where we have an opportunity to do just this, to make a joyful noise, to come eagerly before God, to anticipate with enthusiasm this opportunity, and we can celebrate by doing that by singing forthrightly, regardless of our tonal memory, our rhythm memory, or our pitch discrimination. So if we were to summarize the lessons learned in these few Psalms, we can conclude, and I've come up with 7 conclusions in these little Psalms. Number 1, we're to come before God. It's pretty simple. It repeats it over and over, to come before God, and here we are today. Number 2, we are to make or participate. In other words, to be actively involved. We're to make or participate. When it says make a joyful noise. In other words, we're going to do something. Number 3, we're to sing aloud. Something that people can hear. We're to sing aloud. Number 3. Number 4, we're to rejoice. I'm sure we could come before God and participate and sing aloud, but it wouldn't necessarily be rejoicing. We need number 4, to rejoice, to have an enjoyable opportunity. Number 5, we're to sing with thanksgiving. That season is coming upon us here in a little over 2 months. We should think about that as we sing each song, that we sing with thanksgiving. Number 6, we're to sing loudly. That might be better for some people than others, but we're explicitly told to sing loudly. And number 7, we're to praise God. So we're to come before God, we're to participate. Number 3, we're to sing aloud. 4, we're to rejoice. 5, we're to sing with thanksgiving. Number 6, we're to sing loudly. And number 7, we are to praise God. There is something in common with each of these points in these verses. And the common parts: to come before God, singing aloud, giving thanks, praising God, singing loudly, and to do so without regard to the musical quality of our voice. A joyful noisemaker is okay. In fact, it is commanded.